"Do not restart the engine," Emily Carter said, and for the first time that night, every voice aboard the Aurelia went silent. The yacht had been drifting in darkness for less than 30 seconds, but the polished dining salon already felt like a different world. Moments earlier, crystal glasses had shimmered beneath warm lights. Laughter had floated over the Atlantic. Nathaniel Whitmore had stood at the head of the table in his ivory blazer, explaining how men like him did not leave important outcomes to chance. Now the lights were gone. The music had stopped. Beyond the windows, black waves rose and fell beneath a moonless sky, and somewhere below deck, a warning bell pulsed through the floor. One tone, a pause, another tone, controlled, mechanical, unforgiving. Nathaniel turned toward Emily, the waitress holding a silver tray near the service door. Her white shirt was still crisp. Her wine-red apron moved slightly with the tilt of the deck. An hour earlier, he had imitated her coastal Maine accent for the amusement of his guests. He had stretched her vowels, smiled at the table, and watched 6 executives laugh into their champagne. Emily had not defended herself. She had simply replaced his cold coffee and said, "Anything else, sir?" He had mistaken that silence for embarrassment. Now her face held no embarrassment at all, only concentration. The emergency radio crackled from the wall beside the bar. A man's voice broke through the static, urgent and strained, speaking in Norwegian. 3 short sentences, then nothing. Daniel Reeves, Nathaniel's operations director, reached for the radio. "Captain Anderson says we need to restart the port engine," he announced. "It will stabilize us until the backup system comes online." His hand moved toward the control panel. "No," Emily said. Daniel stopped and looked at her as though a chair had spoken. "Excuse me." Emily set down the tray. The glasses touched the table with a soft, precise sound. "That is not what the captain said." A low murmur passed through the room. Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. "You understood him?" She did not answer immediately. Instead, she looked toward the floor, listening to the faint vibration beneath their feet. Then she looked at the emergency panel. One red light blinked beside the words "auxiliary fuel compartment." "He said there is fuel vapor near the electrical housing," she replied. "He said the main line has been isolated, but the auxiliary system is not secure." Daniel gave a short laugh, too quick to sound natural. "She serves dinner, Nate. She does not run marine systems." Emily turned toward him. Her voice remained low. "And you translated the most important word incorrectly." The yacht rolled gently to starboard. A bottle slid 3 inches across the bar before stopping against a folded napkin. No one laughed now. Nathaniel glanced at his Swiss watch, though the second hand could tell him nothing useful. "What was the word?" he asked. Emily met his eyes. "Icky." Daniel's expression changed. "Barely. But she saw it." "It means not," she continued. "The captain did not say restart the engine. He said do not restart it." The radio crackled once more, but no voice followed. Only static. Nathaniel looked at Daniel, then at the dark windows, then back at the woman whose accent he had mocked. "What happens if we restart it?" Emily's fingers rested against the edge of the table. "Steady. If the captain is right, one electrical spark could ignite the vapor." Somewhere below them, the warning bell sounded again. One tone, a pause, another tone. Emily looked toward the control panel. And someone is about to make exactly that mistake. 1 hour earlier, the Aurelia had seemed untouchable. The 80-foot yacht moved across the Atlantic with the quiet confidence of something built for men who believed the world could be controlled. Warm lights spilled across the upper deck. A jazz piano played through hidden speakers. Beyond the rail, the evening sea stretched dark blue beneath a fading orange sky. Nathaniel Whitmore stood at the center of it all, his ivory blazer bright against the polished teak, one hand resting near a glass of mineral water, the other adjusting the silver watch at his wrist. At 39, Nathaniel had turned Whitmore Maritime Holdings into one of the most profitable shipping companies on the East Coast. He trusted schedules, contracts, and numbers. He trusted anything that could be measured. People were more difficult. People hesitated. People made excuses. People misunderstood simple instructions. That was why he preferred systems. Systems did not have accents. Emily Carter approached his table carrying a silver coffee service. Her white shirt was neatly pressed, and the wine-red apron around her waist matched the folded napkins beside each plate. She had been working aboard the Aurelia for 6 weeks, long enough to know which guests wanted attention and which wanted the illusion of privacy. Nathaniel wanted both. "Your coffee, Mr. Whitmore," she said, placing the cup near his right hand. Her voice carried the soft coastal rhythm of Maine, a trace of home she had never tried to erase. Nathaniel looked up. "Coffee," he repeated, copying the way she had shaped the word. One of the executives smiled. Another lowered his glass to hide a laugh. Nathaniel leaned back, pleased with the small reaction he had created. "Did I say it correctly?" he asked. Emily held his gaze for a moment. Her expression remained calm. "Close enough to be understood, sir." The laughter faded unevenly. Nathaniel studied her, uncertain whether he had been insulted. Emily simply poured the coffee. The liquid had already begun to cool in the evening wind. "Anything else?" she asked. "No," he said. "That will be all." She turned away, but not before hearing Daniel Reeves whisper that the captain was becoming nervous about the weather. Near the service station, Emily paused. Beneath the music and conversation, another sound pressed through the deck. A low vibration, uneven. 3 seconds of humming, then a soft metallic shudder. She looked toward the stairway leading below deck. Claire Bennett, the service manager, noticed. "What is it?" she asked quietly. "The floor," Emily said. "It was not doing that earlier." Claire listened, then shook her head. "This yacht has more machinery than a small factory. Something is always making noise." Emily nodded, but her attention remained fixed on the deck. A faint smell drifted through the air. Not smoke. Not yet. Fuel. Near the navigation corridor, 2 crew members spoke quickly in Norwegian. Emily caught only part of the exchange as a door closed between them. "Auxiliary sensor. Delayed maintenance," Captain informed. She placed the coffee pot on the counter. Across the deck, Nathaniel raised his glass as his guests applauded the numbers projected on the outdoor screen. Millions of dollars. New routes. New ships. A perfect future arranged in clean white columns. Emily looked beyond him toward the western horizon. The orange light had disappeared. Clouds were gathering in a solid black line, less than 10 miles away. Then the deck trembled again, stronger this time, and the coffee in Nathaniel Whitmore's cup formed a single dark ripple. The ripple in Nathaniel's coffee vanished almost as quickly as it had appeared, but Emily did not look away. Across the upper deck, the executives continued applauding while a presentation screen displayed the projected value of the North Star acquisition. $380 million in expanded routes, 20 new vessels, access to ports from Boston to Northern Europe. Nathaniel stood beside the screen with the calm certainty of a man presenting a future he believed already belonged to him. "By this time next year," he said, "Whitmore Maritime will control the most efficient private shipping network on the Atlantic." The guests raised their glasses. Emily lifted the coffee pot and moved toward the service station, but the vibration beneath the deck returned. This time it lasted longer. 5 seconds. Then silence. Daniel Reeves stepped away from the group when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the message, and the confidence in his face tightened for a moment. Emily watched him cross toward the navigation corridor. He opened the door just enough to speak with Captain Lars Anderson, whose tall frame filled the narrow passage. Their voices remained low, but the wind carried fragments across the deck. "Pressure irregularity," the captain said in Norwegian. "We should reduce speed and inspect the auxiliary line." Daniel answered in English. "Not tonight. Mr. Whitmore signs in 40 minutes. Captain Anderson's jaw hardened. The sea does not care about his schedule. Daniel closed the door before Emily could hear more. When he returned, Nathaniel was waiting near the table. "Problem?" Nathaniel asked. Daniel slipped his phone into his jacket. "A sensor is giving an inconsistent reading. The captain is being cautious." "Will it affect the signing?" "No," the answer came too quickly. Nathaniel looked toward the darkening horizon. "The weather?" "Passing offshore. We will feel some wind, nothing more." Nathaniel accepted the explanation because it sounded complete. Daniel had managed his operations for 10 years. He spoke in numbers, arrived early, and never brought Nathaniel a problem without a solution attached. Trust, in Nathaniel's world, was not emotional. It was a record of predictable results. Emily approached with a fresh cup. "Mr. Whitmore," she said. Captain Anderson sounded concerned. Nathaniel turned slowly. "You were listening to a private conversation?" "I heard enough to know he recommended slowing down." Daniel gave her a patient smile that carried no warmth. "The crew is handling it. He mentioned the auxiliary fuel line. The smile disappeared. Nathaniel looked from Emily to Daniel. Did he? Daniel adjusted his cuff. She heard technical language in another language. I would not treat that as an engineering report. Emily's hand remained steady around the saucer. I understood what he said. Nathaniel studied her for a moment, then glanced at the guests waiting for him to return. And what exactly qualifies you to interpret my captain? He asked. Emily could have answered. She could have told him about the maritime language courses, the emergency communication exams, and the years spent listening to recordings most people could not endure twice. Instead, she looked toward the corridor where the captain had disappeared. Understanding the warning should be qualification enough. Nathaniel's expression cooled. Serve the table, Miss Carter. Let the captain manage the yacht. Emily placed the fresh cup beside the cold one. Of course, sir. She stepped away as Daniel leaned closer to Nathaniel and lowered his voice. Behind them, the presentation resumed. The guests applauded another promise. Then, from below deck, came a muted mechanical click. Emily stopped. The smell of fuel returned, sharper now. At the same moment, Captain Anderson appeared in the corridor holding a printed maintenance report. Daniel reached him first. He took the page, folded it once, and slipped it into his pocket before Nathaniel could see it. Daniel kept the folded report inside his jacket as Captain Anderson stepped onto the upper deck. The captain's face was composed, but his eyes moved first to the dark horizon, then to Nathaniel. Mr. Whitmore, I recommend reducing speed immediately, he said. The auxiliary fuel system is showing pressure loss, and the storm is moving faster than expected. Nathaniel glanced at Daniel. I was told this was a sensor issue. Daniel answered before the captain could. It is. Lars is choosing the most cautious interpretation. Captain Anderson's expression hardened. Caution is not weakness at sea. The wind lifted the corner of the white tablecloths. One of the guests reached for a champagne glass before it could tip. Nathaniel looked toward the presentation screen, where the North Star logo waited beside an unsigned contract. In less than 30 minutes, 3 investors would confirm a deal he had spent 11 months building. Turning back now would not destroy the agreement, but it would raise questions. Questions created delay. Delay created doubt. Nathaniel had built his fortune by moving before other men finished hesitating. Can we complete the signing and then reduce speed? He asked. Captain Anderson took a breath. I would not advise it. Daniel stepped closer. The captain is responsible for the vessel, Nate. I am responsible for operations. We can maintain course for another hour without risk. Emily stood near the service station, pretending to arrange silverware while every word settled heavily inside her. Captain Anderson had not said there was no risk. He had said the opposite. The yacht moved through another long swell, and the plates shifted softly against the linen. The captain looked at Nathaniel. I will send the full report to the bridge and prepare for inspection. He turned away. Daniel followed him into the corridor. Emily waited 3 seconds, then picked up an empty tray and moved toward the interior passage. She found Daniel standing beneath the blue emergency lights, reading the folded report. His back was partly turned. On the page, beneath several lines of English, a bold Norwegian sentence had been printed near the bottom. Umiddelbar isolering Creeves. Immediate isolation required. Emily felt the air leave her lungs slowly. Daniel noticed her reflection in the polished wall panel and folded the paper at once. Staff areas are behind you, he said. I was collecting glassware. Then collect it. His voice remained calm, but his hand closed more tightly around the report. Emily looked at the paper. The system needs to be isolated. Daniel stared at her. You are making assumptions. I read the sentence. You recognized a few words. I recognized all of them. For the first time, something uncertain appeared in his face. It vanished quickly. Mr. Whitmore is hosting a major transaction. Do not create panic over equipment you do not understand. Captain Anderson understands it. And Captain Anderson reports through me. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. You have a good position here, Emily. Do your job, and you will keep it. She did not move. Is that why you hid the report? His eyes became still. Before he could answer, Nathaniel entered the corridor. Hid what report? Daniel unfolded the page halfway. A routine maintenance notice. Emily saw a Norwegian phrase and decided she had discovered a crisis. Nathaniel looked at her, irritation replacing curiosity. Again, the phrase says immediate isolation is required. According to you. According to the captain's report. Nathaniel held out his hand. Daniel gave him the page, but the lower section remained folded beneath his fingers. Nathaniel scanned the visible English lines. Sensor fluctuation. Inspection recommended. No immediate operational failure confirmed. He returned it. There is nothing here that justifies interrupting my guests. Emily's voice stayed level. Then unfold the bottom. Daniel's jaw tightened. Nathaniel noticed. The corridor seemed to narrow around the three of them. Outside, thunder rolled across the water, low and distant. Nathaniel reached for the report again, but at that moment the yacht gave a sudden shudder. The lights flickered once, then twice. From somewhere below deck came a sharp alarm, and Captain Anderson's voice sounded over the intercom in Norwegian, faster now, no longer cautious. Captain Anderson's voice burst through the intercom in rapid Norwegian, each word clipped by static. Emily listened without blinking. Daniel reached toward the wall speaker, as if lowering the volume could make the message less real. What did he say? Nathaniel asked. Daniel answered first. He wants us to move the guests inside while the crew checks the system. Emily turned to him. That is not what he said. The alarm sounded again. A red light appeared above the corridor door. Nathaniel looked between them, his patience thinning. Then translated. Emily kept her voice calm. The pressure is dropping in the auxiliary fuel line. The captain has ordered immediate isolation and a reduction in speed. He said no electrical systems near the lower compartment should be activated until the area is cleared. Daniel gave a quiet laugh. You are exaggerating technical language because you do not understand the context. I understand the context perfectly. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. The guests were beginning to gather at the entrance to the corridor, their earlier confidence replaced by uneasy silence. Claire stood behind them, one hand gripping the edge of the service cart. Mr. Whitmore, Emily said, you need to stop the signing and let the captain change course. Nathaniel looked toward the open deck, where the wind had begun pulling at the table linens. You are telling me to interrupt a $380 million agreement because you heard a warning over a speaker. I am telling you because the person responsible for this yacht gave a direct order, and someone is changing his words. Daniel stepped forward. Careful. Emily met his eyes. I am being careful. That is the difference. A few guests exchanged glances. Nathaniel lowered his voice. Miss Carter, your accent is not a credential. The corridor went still. Emily's fingers tightened once around the empty tray. Then they relaxed. Neither is your confidence. No one moved. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. Nathaniel's expression changed, not from anger alone, but from the shock of hearing someone refuse the place he had assigned them. Daniel broke the silence. This has gone far enough. Claire, take her below and keep her away from the guests. Claire hesitated. Emily did not. She placed the tray on the service cart and reached for the folded report in Daniel's hand. He pulled it back. Show him the bottom line, she said. If I am wrong, I will leave this yacht the moment we reach shore. Nathaniel extended his hand. Give me the report. Daniel held it for 1 second too long, then passed it over. Nathaniel unfolded the page completely. The Norwegian warning sat beneath the English summary in bold black letters. He looked at Emily. Read it. Immediate isolation required. Continued operation may increase vapor accumulation near the auxiliary electrical housing. Nathaniel's eyes shifted to Daniel. Why was this folded? Because it is a preliminary caution, not a confirmed failure. That was not my question. Thunder rolled closer. The lights above them dimmed, recovered, then dimmed again. From the lower deck came a deep mechanical groan. Captain Anderson's voice returned over the intercom, more urgent than before. Emily listened. Her face lost all color. What now? Nathaniel asked. He says the storm has pushed us off the planned route, and the fuel readings are worsening. Daniel shook his head. We can still maintain speed. Emily looked directly at Nathaniel. Not safely. Nathaniel stared at the report, then at the unsigned contract visible through the salon doors. For 11 months, he had controlled every detail of this moment. Now the decision rested on a warning he could not read and a waitress he had refused to hear. He checked his watch. Then he closed the contract folder. In the presentation, he said. Daniel stepped toward him. Nate, think about what this will cost. Nathaniel looked up. I am beginning to. The presentation ended without applause. Nathaniel stepped into the salon and told the guests to remain calm while the crew adjusted course. His voice was steady, but the room had already changed. The champagne glasses were untouched. The projected numbers still glowed on the screen, bright and useless against the dark windows. Outside, rain struck the deck in sudden sheets. Captain Anderson called from the bridge, first in English, then in Norwegian when the intercom began cutting out. Reduce speed. Prepare the emergency anchor. Nathaniel turned to Daniel. You said the storm would pass offshore. Daniel looked toward the windows. The forecast shifted. Emily heard the tremor beneath his answer. She also heard something else. A hard metallic knock below deck, followed by silence where the engines had been humming. The yacht lost speed. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. The salon fell dark. A few guests gasped. Emergency strips along the floor glowed red, painting every face with the same uncertain color. The Aurelia rolled to starboard, and chairs slid several inches across the polished floor. Claire guided the guests toward the central seating area. Stay together, she said. Keep away from the windows. Nathaniel reached for the wall radio. Static answered him. Then Captain Anderson's voice came through, strained but clear enough for Emily to understand. He spoke rapidly in Norwegian. Fuel vapor confirmed. Main line isolated. Auxiliary electrical housing compromised. Do not restart the engine. Daniel took the radio from Nathaniel. He says we need the port engine back online to hold position. Emily stepped forward. No. He said do not restart it. Daniel turned on her. Not now. Especially now. A sudden sound came from below deck, not an explosion, but a deep mechanical thump that traveled through the walls. The emergency lights dimmed. Captain Anderson spoke again, faster this time. His final words broke apart in static. Emily closed her eyes for 1 second, listening past the noise. He is leaving the bridge to close the auxiliary valve manually, she said. He wants all power near the lower compartment shut down. Daniel shook his head. If we cut auxiliary power, we lose stabilizers. If we keep it, we risk a spark. Nathaniel looked at the control panel. A green switch labeled Port Engine Restart waited beneath a protective cover. Daniel lifted the cover. We are drifting, he said. Without power, the wind will push us toward the shoals. Emily moved between him and the panel. The captain gave a direct order. The captain is not here. His warning is. Daniel reached past her. Nathaniel caught his wrist. The gesture was quiet, but final. Do not touch it. Daniel stared at him. You are trusting a waitress over your operations director. Nathaniel looked toward Emily, then toward the black sea beyond the glass. I am trusting the person who has translated every warning correctly so far. The yacht rolled again. Somewhere on the bridge, an alarm began counting in slow, even pulses. Emily crossed to the navigation display. Most of the screen was dark, but a backup map showed their position. The wind had pushed them nearly half a mile east of the planned route. A warning arc flashed ahead. Shallow water. Rocks. Less than 3 miles away. How long? Nathaniel asked. Emily studied the drift line and the wind speed. At this rate, 15 minutes before we enter the danger zone. Daniel's face tightened. Then we have no choice. Restart the engine. The radio crackled one last time. Captain Anderson's voice was faint. Icky start motorin. Then silence. Emily looked at Nathaniel. He said do not start the engine. The alarm kept pulsing. 15 minutes. Then 14. Nathaniel removed his Swiss watch and placed it face down on the table. For the first time that night, he stopped looking at time and started listening. The backup map continued blinking as the Aurelia drifted east. 14 minutes became 13. The red warning arc widened across the screen, marking the shallow water ahead. Nathaniel stood beside Emily, his ivory blazer darkened at one shoulder by rain blown through the open corridor door. Tell me what we can do without restarting the engine, he said. It was the first question he had asked her without suspicion. Emily studied the display, then looked toward the emergency equipment panel. The captain mentioned the emergency sea anchor before the radio failed. If we deploy it from the stern, it can slow our drift and turn the bow into the wind. Daniel shook his head. That system has not been tested under this kind of load. Neither has the fuel compartment, Emily replied. One risk is controlled. The other is not. Nathaniel looked toward the bridge. Can the crew deploy it? Claire answered from the salon entrance. 2 deckhands are already securing the guests. Captain Anderson is still below. Emily glanced at the rain striking the windows. Then we need to help them. Daniel stepped in front of the corridor. You are not trained for deck operations. Emily looked at the folded maintenance report in his hand. You have said that about everything tonight. The alarm pulsed again. 12 minutes. Nathaniel turned to Claire. Move everyone to the center lounge and distribute life jackets. Keep them seated and away from the glass. Then he looked at Daniel. You will stay here and monitor the map. Nate, that is a mistake. No. Ignoring the captain was a mistake. Nathaniel opened the emergency cabinet and pulled out 2 waterproof jackets. He handed one to Emily. She took it without comment. Together, they entered the storm. Wind swept across the deck at nearly 40 miles per hour, flattening Emily's wine-red apron against her legs. Rain stung her face. The yacht rose beneath them, then settled into another dark swell. At the stern, 2 deckhands struggled with the sea anchor housing. A yellow indicator light flashed beside the release lever. One of them shouted that the hydraulic system had lost pressure. Emily crouched near the manual instructions, which were printed in English and Norwegian. The English section had been damaged by water. The Norwegian remained readable. There is a manual release beneath the port panel, she said. Pull the locking pin, rotate the wheel clockwise, then wait for the green signal. Nathaniel found the panel and opened it. There are 2 pins. Emily, read the next line. The lower one. The upper pin releases the cable too early. Nathaniel paused, rain running from his hair onto his face. One wrong choice could send the anchor loose before the line was secured. He gripped the lower pin and pulled. A green light appeared. Now the wheel, Emily said. The deckhands turned it together. The housing opened, and the folded sea anchor dropped into the water behind them. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the line tightened. The yacht shuddered and began rotating slowly into the wind. Nathaniel held the rail and watched the navigation lights shift across the horizon. Over the radio clipped to his jacket, Claire's voice came through. Drift speed is decreasing. We are still moving toward the shoals, but much slower. Emily checked the line. It needs more drag. Captain Anderson said the secondary cable could be extended. Where? Nathaniel asked. She searched the Norwegian instructions. Under the starboard bench. Red handle. One of the deckhands found it and pulled. The second cable released. The yacht turned another few degrees. Back inside, Daniel stared at the map as the projected path shortened. 11 minutes became 23, then 31. Nathaniel and Emily returned to the salon soaked but steady. Claire met them with the backup chart. We bought time, she said. Emily looked at the wind direction, then at the depth markings. Not enough. Daniel's hand moved toward the engine restart switch again. Nathaniel saw him. Do not. Daniel faced him. The anchor will not hold forever. Then we find another answer. Emily reached for the paper chart. She traced a narrow channel west of their position, a route barely wide enough for the Aurelia. There is a deeper current here. If we adjust the anchor angle, the wind can push us away from the rocks instead of toward them. Daniel laughed softly. You are guessing. Emily lifted her eyes. No, I am reading what the sea is already doing. Nathaniel looked at the chart, then at the woman he had once told to stay in her role. What do you need? He asked. Emily pointed to the stern controls. 5 minutes. A compass. And everyone to trust me before they understand why. Trust her, Nathaniel said, and this time no one argued. Emily placed the paper chart on the dining table and held a brass compass beside it. The emergency lights cast a red line across the water stains on her white shirt, while her wine-red apron still clung to her from the rain. Outside, the sea anchor pulled hard against the stern. The yacht had slowed, but the current continued dragging it toward the rocks. We need to shorten the port cable by 12 feet and extend the starboard cable by 8, Emily said. That will turn us far enough for the westward current to catch the hull. One of the deckhands looked toward Daniel. Daniel remained near the control panel, his face unreadable. Nathaniel noticed. Follow her instructions, he said. The deckhands moved. Emily watched the compass needle tremble as the cables were adjusted. 10 degrees. Then 15. The Aurelia began to rotate. On the backup map, the projected path shifted slowly away from the red warning zone. Claire released a breath she had been holding. We are clearing the shoals. Nathaniel looked at Emily. She did not smile. Her attention remained on the chart. Not yet, she said. The current has to hold. For nearly a minute, the room heard only rain, alarms, and the strained line at the stern. Then the warning arc disappeared from the screen. The yacht was moving west, away from the rocks. A quiet sound passed through the salon. Not applause. Relief. Nathaniel placed one hand on the table. You did it. Emily looked toward the bridge. The captain did. I only listened. Daniel turned away. His hand moved quickly across the auxiliary terminal. Emily caught the change reflected in the dark window. A Norwegian command had appeared on the screen. Slet vedlik holdslag. She crossed the room. Step away from the terminal. Daniel froze. I am securing the system. You are deleting the maintenance log. Nathaniel's head lifted. Daniel pressed another key, but Emily reached the terminal first and canceled the command. What does it say? Nathaniel asked. Delete maintenance record, she replied. Daniel's voice sharpened. It is a corrupted duplicate. Emily opened the log. Dates appeared beside a series of pressure warnings. 3 weeks earlier. 12 days earlier. 2 days earlier. Each notice carried Daniel's authorization code. Captain Anderson had requested repairs before the voyage. Daniel had postponed them. You knew, Emily said. No accusation colored her voice. That made the words heavier. Nathaniel stepped closer to the screen. You approved departure after 3 fuel pressure warnings? Daniel straightened his jacket. The readings were inconsistent. Canceling the trip would have damaged the North Star Agreement. So you changed the captain's translation. I protected the company. Nathaniel stared at the records. For years, Daniel had given him answers that arrived clean, confident, and convenient. Emily had given him warnings that were uncomfortable, incomplete, and true. A company is not protected by hiding what can destroy it, Nathaniel said. A knock sounded from the corridor. Captain Anderson appeared with 2 crew members supporting him as the yacht rolled gently beneath their feet. He looked exhausted, but he was standing. His eyes moved from the secured engine panel to the safe course on the map. Then he saw Emily. He spoke in Norwegian, softly this time. Emily answered in the same language. Nathaniel listened without understanding a word. What did he say? He asked. Emily turned toward him. He said the emergency valve is closed. The vapor is clearing, and rescue vessels are less than 20 miles away. Captain Anderson added another sentence. Emily paused before translating it. He also said someone finally heard him. Nathaniel looked at Daniel, then at the woman in the stained apron who had carried the truth across every barrier he had placed before her. Secure every record, he ordered Claire. No files are to be changed. Daniel opened his mouth, but Nathaniel raised one hand. You have explained enough. Outside, the storm continued. Inside, the yacht was no longer moving toward danger. Emily looked down at the compass. Its needle had stopped trembling. For the first time that night, it knew exactly where to point. The rescue vessels reached the Aurelia just after dawn. By then, the storm had moved east, leaving the sea restless but visible beneath a pale gray sky. The guests stood quietly in the salon as the first Coast Guard lights appeared less than a mile away. No one spoke about the unsigned contract. No one mentioned the champagne. The numbers on the presentation screen had gone dark hours earlier, and somehow that felt appropriate. Captain Anderson remained on the bridge with 2 crew members while the fuel compartment continued to clear. Claire had preserved every maintenance record, every translation log, and every message Daniel had tried to erase. Daniel sat alone near the far window, his jacket folded beside him, his confidence reduced to silence. Nathaniel stood at the dining table where his Swiss watch still rested face down. Emily had changed into a dry white shirt, but she still wore the same wine-red apron. A faint coffee stain marked one corner. Nathaniel noticed it and remembered the laughter from the night before. He remembered repeating her accent as though the way she spoke had given him permission to decide what she knew. Emily, he said. She turned. Mr. Whitmore. He looked toward the others. I owe you an apology where everyone can hear it. The room became still. Nathaniel picked up his watch, then set it down again without putting it on. Last night, I judged your intelligence by your job, your uniform, and your voice. I trusted confidence because it was familiar. I ignored truth because it came from someone I had already decided not to respect. Emily held his gaze. He continued. That failure was mine, not yours. No one applauded. The silence carried more weight than applause could have. There is something else, Nathaniel said. I want you to lead a new maritime communication and safety division at Whitmore. Full authority. Full funding. Emily looked toward Captain Anderson through the glass doors. I was not trying to earn a position. I know, and I will not accept one just to make this story look better. Nathaniel nodded slowly. Then tell me what would make it right. Emily rested both hands on the back of a chair. Release the maintenance records. Cooperate with the investigation. Require emergency language training for every ship in your fleet. And give every employee, from the captain to the newest server, the right to stop a voyage when they see a serious risk. Daniel looked up. Nathaniel did not. Done, he said. Not promised. Written. Written. 3 months later, the first training class opened at a renovated facility near Portland, Maine. Captain Anderson taught emergency command. Claire led passenger safety. Emily stood at the front of the room beneath a simple sign that read Carter Maritime Communication and Safety Center. She no longer wore an apron. Her identification badge read Director. Nathaniel sat in the back row, not as the owner, but as a student. On the first day, Emily played a recording of a warning in Norwegian and asked the room what they heard. Most admitted they heard only unfamiliar sounds. Emily nodded. That is where danger often begins, she said. Not when no one speaks, but when the wrong people decide a voice does not matter. Nathaniel looked down at the notebook in front of him. He wrote every word. He had once believed power meant being the person everyone obeyed. The sea taught him otherwise. Sometimes power belonged to the person who listened before it was too late. He had mocked the shape of her words. In the end, those words became the only thing on the yacht more powerful than fear.